We were all introduced to the words annus horribilis by, in actual fact, the late Queen. She gave a Queen address, the Queen's message, 20 years ago, and a whole series of things that happened that had rocked, obviously, her world. There'd been divorces in her family. There had been, I think, one of the castles had burnt down or been severely damaged. There were unfortunate things that had happened to Britain in particular. And she introduced us to a word which I'm sure every Latin person knew, but which wasn't part of the public lexicon, called annus horribilis, a horrible year. Well, you'd have to say 2023 would probably be an annus horribilis for our next guest, certainly in his official, if not his personal capacity, as the Mayor of Wairoa District Council, the seaside town just north of Napier, just south of Gisborne, and on the banks of the Wairoa River. Craig Little joins us now. Your Worship, good morning to you.
Oh, kia ora. Hey, seaside town, I like that. That's got a real good ring to it.
Well, actually, I was being a bit generous, wasn't I, really? How far is it to the seaside from Wairoa? 3 kilometres?
Oh, it's probably only... No. Probably, I'd say 800 metres.
Oh, really? So do you have the tide, when the tide comes in, does the river go backwards?
Yes, that's correct. So the tide's a big part of when it rains, where we're going to be in that, whether it's going to flood or not.
Tell us a little bit about Wairoa, will you, and the Wairoa District Council.
Look, we were, actually, to be quite honest, COVID came along, and we're really thinking this is going to be the worst thing that happened, but it was actually one of the good things that happened to Wairoa, because it meant that everyone shopped locally because they had no other choice, and we had a little bit of a economic upturn. So that was great. So it wasn't as bad as we thought, but of course then it started raining, and it just hasn't stopped raining.
When did the rain start? Because we all think that it started, I guess, with Cyclone Gabriel, but it started earlier than that, didn't it?
Yeah, it probably started. We didn't really get a summer at all, and it just so of course when Cyclone Gabriel came along, the ground was so sodden, it just all let go and ended up down in town and out in the sea. So it's just been a horrible, horrible year. People are depressed, rain anxiety, all those sorts of things, and we're just over it.
Take me through the depression. You're the mayor. I mean, you would get a pretty good tenor of how people feel. Is that affecting everybody, or are the poor more vulnerable, or whatever, or is it just that we haven't seen the sun and it's not dry?
Yeah, there's a lot of that, but the people are really hurting are the ones that their homes got hit. 133 homes, only 3 families are back in. Still got 130 homes that nobody are in. So every time it rains, because don't forget, those people woke up in the morning and thought, gosh, the weather event's gone, we're all good. And about 7 o'clock, all water started coming in and just didn't stop. And so now when it rains, just the other day, we had a big rain event. We said, no, it's all go, it's all good. We've managed to get through this one. But then they're thinking, well, yes, but is it going to carry on and come again? So that's it. Farmers are absolutely over it. We're fixing fences three times or more, probably more actually, and roads and tracks. You get everything done. And just the other day, I was hit a little bit, but nothing like some of the other areas in Wairoa. So fences I've done, and got to go back now and fix them again. You just get over it. And of course, we've got a bad year in terms of stock prices. So everything's just against us at the moment.
You're an interesting place. I was born in Wairoa because my father was a teacher there at Wairoa College. This is late 50s. It was his first teaching job, in actual fact. They did country service in those days.
So that's probably why you're such a good bloke.
But there was a maternity hospital there in those days. Is there a maternity hospital there now still?
There is a ward there. Yes, there is. Generally, if you are up there, my wife did have one of our kids there, and she was the only one in the ward, so it gets quite lonely.
Well, it's better than one would presume being, told to get out after 24 hours or even after 12 hours in some hospitals. Yeah,
exactly.
But take me to Wairoa. How big are you? Your population? 5,000, 7,000 more?
Yeah, so we look at the whole area of Wairoa, and we were about 7,000 a few years ago, about the time that you were giving us a bit of a hard time, actually, and now we're up to about 10,000. And we're growing, and because we've had some pretty, proactive councils and that, we're on a state highway, we've got everything going for us, why can't we grow? And back then, probably the council were a big part of, not being too exciting, but we've had some challenges, I've got to say, in the last year or so.
Yeah. You had challenges anyhow, and we all know of, the gang issues and things like that. I would imagine you did have quite, or you probably still do have quite high unemployment compared to the rest of New Zealand?
Yeah, yes and no, we do, but we sort of have, like AFCO, they're trying to get workers. With all this work now, with our adversity over the storm event, man, we're going to have that much work in Wairoa. It's not even funny, so let's hope that no one has an excuse not to work, really.
Yeah, your problem also is, as I remember, is getting to you, isn't it? Because you've got quite a twisty, windy place, the Devil's Elbow and all that sort of stuff to get to you from Napier. Although Napier's closer, I assume, because I hope the road's better, you have more in common with Gisborne?
That's correct. We do, but our iwi alliance is heading down to the Hawke's Bay more so, but yes, we're both ways really, but if the road to Napier was a much better road, take, say, 30 or 40 minutes off it, it'd be a lot easier for us to do business. I'd imagine what it would take off the expense to the nation. If you could do that, there's some really good options, and I'm really hoping now, because every time it rains, we can guarantee that one way or other will be blocked, or all three ways into Wairoa will be blocked, which has happened most occasions. So we've just got to get our road resilient so this doesn't happen.
What's the retail like in Wairoa? Because I hear people say it actually did suffer, must have been consequent to COVID, as you're saying there, and that there aren't the same retail options there were 10 years ago. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. It's like any town, really. Whether you're a big or small town, you're always going to struggle to fill those shops. But I think sometimes our isolation can be an advantage to us, because it means that people have to shop locally unless they can get out and shop either end in Gisborne or Hawke's Bay. So we're a bit lucky that way, but we're always going to be struggling. But there's a lot of responsibility on people who might complain about Wairoa and how it's struggling, that maybe instead of going to all the big appliance shops and all the big, actually buy you. And I learned this myself. Bought something away, then when it broke down, you really had bugger all help. Where you buy it local, they'll look after you. So yeah, we've really just got to look. If we don't do it ourselves, someone's not going to do it for us. You
were stated as saying there's actually zero flood protection at the moment for Wairoa. I think you said that earlier this year.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that still the case?
That is still the case. So we've got a lot of these people rebuilding their homes, living that anxiety. Well, what's going to stop the flooding? The flooding was a bit different this time, I've got to say, with Woody Debris and Slash. It did a lot of different things that we've never seen before. So we've got to get down to the point of why we flooded. But we've also managed to get $70 million to ring fence for Wairoa for flood protection. But how we do that, we're still working on that.
Is that delivered through the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, or is that going to be delivered through your council or by government?
Well, we're working closely with the Hawke's Bay Regional Council and Tātou to Wairoa, because we have a group called the Tripartite Agreement, where the three of us are working with. So we'd like to deliver that through that Tripartite Agreement. It's a treaty legislative group, which means we will have a little bit of control. We're not saying we don't trust Hawke's Bay Regional Council, but it means we're all working at the same table together. So we're doing that at the moment. We've formed a stakeholders group that represents most groups across the Rohi. So then they can come back and say, well, actually, that idea is a really good idea. That one's really stupid. That's not going to work. And, we've got to be really careful with riverbanks that we don't actually trap ourselves in as well if we have a localised rain event. So it's a lot of work to be done.
Well, I mean, I know the Wairoa River runs down the middle, right beside your retail area there. It basically divides Wairoa in two. And in fact, you're defined to a large extent by your river, aren't you? How on earth do you put flood protection in and not, almost create ghettos?
So we're looking a bit more seriously at it now, and things like bypasses. So basically, if the river gets to a level, it might be able to shoot round the back somewhere and join the river further down, and take that big chunk of the river out. It goes right down to the big airspan right round through town. But it's always going to be difficult because we love our view, we love our river, but sometimes that can be your worst enemy.
Yeah, because if it floods, then, wow, the whole, yeah. Which is worse affected? There's a sort of a North Wairoa and a South Wairoa. I mean, the part that's close.
This time was the North Clyde, and it's a funny thing. That's why it's so much different than any other flood. So whilst it was flooding in North Clyde, our river wasn't flooding in the Wairoa Township. And actually the water was coming out of North Clyde and flowing back down like waterfalls back into the river. So that tells you that the river was probably blocked up, which it was further up. And, with slashing up against bridges and that. So, yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Believe me, a lot of work. But in Cyclone Bowler, both sides flooded.
So you're having these repeated events, and this year has been, as you say, extraordinarily wet. And, gosh, you've just had another event in the past week. Can I ask the question, do you think this is permanent?
Oh, look, I'd have to go. I've always said that. I've got 100 years of diaries on the farm up there, and I can remember my father and my grandfather saying we've had rain events before. You just look at the history. But we've just got to, I think our river protection will be, even if you gave us another metre, that's going to make a huge difference to us. And things like that. So we've never been serious on this because we haven't had the government support before, but we have it now. And that was the previous government, by the way. And so we've got to now go, right, let's get this right.